Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Trident podcast. I'm starting this podcast to discuss just topics that interest me. I'm going to go over news that's going on around the world that is associated with topics that I like: crypto, real estate, investing, hunting, food, anything. We'll see where it takes us. I'm starting a lot of new things in my life right now. I've got a lot of new goals. New goals to be a better man, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotionally. There's a lot of new things that I'm doing. Um, and this is one of them. I'm doing this podcast and I really want to stick to it. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is Bitcoin Miami. So last week, I live in Miami. Last weekend was the Bitcoin Miami event. Whole mess of crypto people. We're down here in Miami for the Bitcoin event. Here's from a quote from the New York Times. It said, there was a reason we were in Miami and not New York, San Francisco, or Los Angeles. The city has gone full crypto. And funny enough, I was on Saturday. I believe the event was Friday and Saturday. Saturday, I went to the beach with some friends. And on my way back home from the beach, I was going through downtown, and I saw billboards of crypto everywhere. I saw Algorand advertisements. I saw Bitcoin everywhere. It was so surreal to me. I got into crypto in 2017, back when nobody was talking about crypto. I mean, if you were in crypto, you were really in crypto. Like, you knew your stuff. And I'm sorry, not 2017. I got into crypto in late 2018. And in 2018, I remember I was working in real estate for a wholesale company. And I was asking investors, like, hey, have you heard about Bitcoin? Have you heard about cryptocurrency? What do you think about it? And most of them had no idea, or if they did have an opinion, it was like a short clip. It sounded like a short clip that they watched from CNN. They said, oh, yeah, that's used for money laundering, Silk Roads, the dark web. That's all they knew about it. They didn't know how Bitcoin worked. They didn't know what it was used for, the technology, the code. They didn't know anything. And, Miami was no different. I mean, no one in Miami didn't have anything special about crypto back in the day. And I've seen over the last 3 years how it's just transformed. Now they're calling Miami one of the future cities because they're adopting crypto. It's actually quite beautiful, the fact that over the last 3 years, I've seen crypto get adoption, and now people that have no business being in crypto are not talking about crypto. I mean, I go to my barbershop and they're discussing Dogecoin. It's actually quite funny. And I wonder where this is going to lead us. I think we're just going to get further and further adoption. The smaller people are going to get crushed for sure. 99% of cryptos are going to disappear off the face of the earth. And it's just like the dot-com bubble. The majority of the strong cryptos that have utility, that solve real problems, will stay. And in another 5 or 6 years, we'll be talking about those cryptos. But until that happens, we're living in this bubble. Talking about bubbles, home prices. So this is an article from the Washington Post. I got a quote from it. It says, we made 4 offers. So this is a lady that was looking to buy a house. It doesn't say what neighborhood she was in, but it says, we made 4 offers on a house, all significantly above list price. But some of them sold for $100,000 more over asking price. In some cases, we waived the home inspection because we were able to do a pre-inspection before we made an offer. In other cases, we waived the appraisal contingency. That is like, what? Wow. That's just crazy. Like, homes are being sold $100,000 or more over asking price. If that's not a bubble, I don't know what is. I mean, it's a major seller's market. They're waiving their appraisal contingency. For those of you who don't know, when you put an offer in a house, say you all put an offer for $400,000. All right, you're getting a loan unless you're buying cash. Once you do that, the people you're getting a loan from are going to send an appraiser, and the appraiser is going to go check out the house, appraise it, and they're going to put the number that they believe the house is worth. Now, if that appraising number comes under the price you asked for, well, whatever's over the loan amount, you have to pay out of pocket, or you just don't get the house. And usually there's a contingency in your contract that if the appraiser comes under, either you can renegotiate or you're out of the contract. Well, people are waiving their appraisal contingency, meaning even if the appraisal comes in low, they're stuck with the contract and they have to find a way to pay for it, which is just, that's like suicide. Yeah, I mean, economic suicide. That's crazy. It's getting pretty scary out there. You know, I've been expecting a home crash, a real estate crash for a long time. Real estate crash for a long time, and it feels like everything's just inflating. And you know, homes are not specific. They're not the only ones being inflated. You know, we know that the stock market is in all-time highs. Crypto, I mean, Bitcoin hit all-time highs not too long ago. This has a direct correlation to how much money the United States is printing and other countries are printing. You could say it's due to coronavirus, but the truth is we were printing money way before coronavirus. I mean, this goes back all the way to the 2008 financial bubble. You know, in 2008, we just put a Band-Aid over a far, far larger problem. And eventually, we're going to have to pay for it. I mean, we're printing more money, so maybe the next generation is going to have to pay for it, or I don't know. I think it's about to blow. Actually, it's about to blow. Actually, speaking of that, I got some other news here from Bloomberg. Title is Yellen calls for inflation and higher interest rates. Okay, now for those of you who don't know, inflation and higher interest rates, they have a funny relationship. So inflation, I actually might make a video about inflation and interest rates. But in layman's terms, inflation means you're printing too much money or there's quantitative easing and money supply goes up, which means the dollar value goes down, meaning now you need more dollars to buy the same of something. Wood, food, anything. You need more dollars than you used to buy the same item, right? So interest rates, usually it's talking about federal interest rates, but federal interest rates, it trickles down to the rest of the interest rates, whether it's housing, whether it's bank to bank, it'll trickle down and affect the whole interest rate market. So if the Fed decides to raise interest rates, that would trigger, that's their card for fighting inflation. You raise interest rates, now people hold back. There's not as much movement in the market. And as a consequence, the economy suffers, but now the dollar will start to gain more strength. So, you know, if you want a healthy economy, this is what you raise interest rates when there's inflation. Like, that's how you regulate it. And funny enough, Yellen is calling for inflation and possible higher interest rates in the future. I'm going to read this from Bloomberg article. It says, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said President Joe Biden should push forward with the $4 trillion spending plan, even if it triggers inflation and persists into next year and higher interest rates. There you go. If we end up with slightly higher interest rates, with a slightly higher interest rate environment, it would actually be a plus for society's point of view and the Fed's point of view. Yellen said Sunday in an interview with Bloomberg News during the return from the group of 7 finance ministers meeting in London. Wow. It says here, we've been fighting inflation that's low and interest rates that are interest rates that are too low for a decade, former Federal Reserve Chair said, adding that we want them to go back up to a normal interest rate environment. And if this helps a little bit to alleviate things, that's not a bad thing at all. It's a very good thing. And you know, I actually agree with them. Because when you have low interest rates and you have high inflation for such a long time, eventually the party has to stop because things can't go up forever. So you have to pull the lever You have to raise interest rates and let the economy take a breather. And unfortunately, in that breather, people will get hurt. Businesses will get hurt, especially now with all the coronavirus. We're in a very ugly part of this economy. And honestly, there's only two options. Either you raise interest rates and you stop the money printing and quantitative easing. I don't know if they're going to stop that, but we'll see. Or you just keep pumping the market until society collapses. And I like to think that the United States government is not that stupid where they would just let society collapse because we have, $50 gallon of milk or, $40 a gallon of gas. But here, Janet Yellen is already calling for higher interest rates. It's kind of the right thing to do. People are going to suffer. And the people who are going to suffer the most are those who either they bought assets at the top of the market and they held on to them and then they get burnt because the market's going to fall. As soon as interest rates come in, it's going to help strengthen the dollar, but as a result, everything will crash. Housing will crash. Crypto will crash. Stocks will crash. A lot of things. A lot of businesses will go. A lot of businesses will just go out of business. People are not going to be able to. Oh, not only that. Also, I believe Biden. I don't know if he passed it or not yet. He's raising minimum wage to $15. The national minimum wage. Imagine if you're a low margin business, you're not making much, you're hit with the coronavirus. Especially this is a perfect example for the food industry. You're hit with coronavirus, you're out of business for a year. And then it's a low margin business, so you're barely making any money. Most of your employees are working on minimum wage and they just make money on their tips. And then they raise interest rates. So now everything becomes more expensive or harder to navigate, harder to get loans. Or more expensive to get loans, and then you have to pay your employees even more. They're squeezing these businesses out of existence. It's really sad, but we have to remember on the wider spectrum of economies, this is kind of normal. It happens. I mean, economies are always in stages of expansion and contraction. And we've been in expansion for an extended period of time, over, 20 years? No, no, not 20 years. It's probably 13, 14 years of expansion. And usually it only lasts 7 to 8 years. So we're long overdue for a contraction. And I think we're seeing the first effects of a contraction coming in. So we'll see what happens. Here's a headline. It says, asset purchases, the headline measure of consumer prices rose 4.2% in the 12 months through April. The numbers for May are due to be published on Thursday. Well, today's Thursday. Let's see. I think I saw it. Someone posted it. Here, let's see. Here we go. Breaking, the U.S. headline inflation actually rose to 5.0 in May. It broke all expectations, which is not a good thing. And the core CPI raised a whopping 3.8% since 1992. That's scary. So people have been talking about inflation for a long time, and everybody's called them crazy. The Fed, for the longest time, the Fed says, inflation's under control. We're keeping it under 2%. No issue, no problem. Well, there you go. We have inflation. We are currently in the early stages of inflation. Will we reach hyperinflation? We'll see. I'd like to think that the U.S. wouldn't let it get to that point. That's why they're talking about raising interest rates already. But it's gonna get pretty bad before it gets worse. So in other news. Let's see. So in other news, crypto regulation. So crypto is obviously a very big topic right now out there. And there's an interesting article from the Washington Post called Crypto Needs Regulation, but it doesn't need new rules. Interesting title. And usually they're saying that because in the past, whenever government has gotten involved, especially in terms of crypto, they don't really regulate. They regulate through enforcement, which is not regulation. They're getting you in trouble for something you didn't know you were going to get in trouble for, which is a perfect example why the SEC is in a lawsuit with Ripple, or vice versa. Ripple's in a lawsuit with the SEC because they are being accused of being security before there were even any regulations or before they even got any notice that they were a security. And they're still not a security because the SEC was confronted the other day and said, no, we believe they're a security, but we do not know yet. That's what we're trying to figure out in this court, it just makes no sense. How is the SEC, a regulatory body, going to say, hey, I don't know if you're security or not, but I'm going to sue you for being a security? What? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So here's a quote from the Washington Post article. I'm sorry, not Washington Post. This is the Wall Street Journal. It says, innovation is rarely smooth or predictable. With a digital revolution underway in the financial service industry, a sector of the economy where the thirst for innovation and profit can never be quenched, there is also a serious risk for both over-regulation and under-regulation. This is true. Policymakers would be wise to ground their efforts in the principal objectives of underpinning existing financial regulations: financial stability, deep and efficient funding markets across the spectrum of debt and equity, and the prevention of fraud and illicit activity. Okay? In layman's terms, they just want to know how they're going to get paid. The government, that's all the government ever cares about. They just want to know, how are we going to tax this? How are we going to control it? Which is a fair question. Okay? Because society needs to operate over some jurisdiction. There has to be some order. And regulations, I believe regulations are coming. They're probably coming through Congress. They're coming, and what's going to happen is when they do come, the majority of these cryptos will cease to exist. They're going to disappear, and only the strong ones that have either a good business plan, or they are solidified in the market by the customers, will remain. Also, having a big name like Bitcoin does help a lot because you have name brand recognition. Yeah, it's really interesting. Right now, if you guys don't know, but I'm a really big XRP holder. I've been following this Ripple case for a while, and it's really interesting because Ripple has been upfront with the government. Actually, they were known in 2017 as one of the only cryptos, or one of the first cryptos, that was always upfront with the government, presenting everything. They were letting them know what they were doing. They asked for permission. They were known as the banker coin. The coin that was working with the system. Every other coin, like Bitcoin, was against the system. And now, after all this time, the system is going against Ripple, suing Ripple. Something doesn't make sense there to me. And the theory by many people, and I believe this to be true also, is that Ripple going through this lawsuit is kind of their golden gate. It's once they're through that gate and they settle this lawsuit, then that's it. They're the only coin that has made it through the gate, through the doors. And Ripple's not going to be the only one. I'm pretty sure other cryptos are going to do this. But it's just so funny to me that as a crypto that has been so transparent for such a long time is now being attacked by the government, by the U.S. government. It doesn't make sense to me. That I believe there is a bigger plan at play. You can call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever. I think there's a bigger plan at play. And something interesting that happened in the 90s with the internet. When the internet came out, it was a lot of just like now, there's a lot of brand new technology. The U.S. didn't know what to do with it. But ultimately, they had a very hands-off approach. They kind of let it go. They let it, take its own course, and they slowly started putting regulations in place. I believe that's kind of what they're going to do with crypto. The problem with crypto is that crypto is very powerful in terms of it's controlling money. It's moving money around. And governments are a little scared about money laundering and tax evasion. And those are the two biggest issues. If there's anything they're worried about, it's those two. Don't be fooled about anything else. Those are the only two things that are holding us back. It's money laundering and tax evasion. Ripple is extremely transparent, along with other cryptocurrencies that have this idea. They have KYC. They have, apart from the fact that they're fast, but they're willing to work with regulators and with governments to make sure that if you're making profits off of your crypto, that you pay your taxes, that you can be found, you can be located, your wallets can be can be looked into and can be linked to you as a person. And this is what's going to happen. This is the future. Is it the future 3 years from now or 20 years from now? I don't know. But the future is you're going to be linked to a wallet, and transparency is going to be 100%. Everybody's going to know, or not everybody, but major corporations are going to know everything about you. Okay, as much as you're a libertarian and you don't want that to happen, it's going to happen. I mean, look, you're walking around with a GPS system already on you all the time. They know your habits. They know the things you like. They know the videos you watch. They already have a perfect description of who you are. Now they're just going to look into your bank account. And believe me, I don't like it. But you can't, unless you go completely off the grid into the mountains, there's no going around it. So that's the future, And the smart people are the ones investing and creating these new systems and the new financial systems that will operate that new future. The Amazons, the Facebooks of tomorrow are being born in crypto right now. It's extremely interesting. And yeah, man, I mean, that's actually all I have for you guys today. I know it's a small little podcast, but it was a nice Kickstarter for this podcast. And hopefully next podcast, I'll bring some more information. We'll have a longer chat. Maybe we'll discuss a whole other topic next time. But thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If there's any topic that you guys want to hear me talk about, or any questions that you want me to answer, or anything, put it in the comment section below, and I would love to prepare that for the next podcast. Thank you guys, and stay great.